What inspired you this time? Because obviously you've been knowledgeable and involved.
Sure. So I've been active here locally in Orlando for many years with the Democratic Party. I served as a precinct leader. I'm still a precinct leader. I was elected as the treasurer for the county party, and I volunteered and done a lot of work for other candidates throughout for the time that I've lived here in Orlando. So I'm just at a time in my life that I'm able to devote most of my time to something like this and be a full-time legislator, which is obviously not the way that it's envisioned, probably, since they only are in session for 60 days a year, which, by the way, they're in session now. And guess what? My district is not represented.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful the way that happens. But I spent 20 years on active duty in the military. I served, and I just want to continue to serve. So that's why I'm running.
No, I think that's great. It's like now you have the time. It's interesting. Like you have, and also I would like to suggest that as we get older, we have better wisdom. You know, like what you're capable of contributing now is probably a lot better than what you would have contributed 50 years ago. And, you know, what's your party politics like up there? Because let me tell you something, the Democratic Party in Broward, have you heard about us? We've got issues.
Okay. I'll let you tell me, because I'm concentrating on my House district right now.
Absolutely.
I'm not looking at the statewide. So
it does seem that
we do have volunteers coming from across the state to help us knock on doors and making phone calls and texting. So that's been really incredible, the amount of support that I receive statewide. But I have kept my focus internal. I haven't looked at.
No, I know, but your local party has been helpful because right. That's nice. It must be nice to be a chosen candidate.
Yeah, the left populist fervor is definitely strongest in the state of Florida along the I-4 corridor. There's no question that that's where a lot of it comes from. You have the support.
All the good people are up there.
Yeah, you have the support of Van Escamani at the state level. You have the support of Maxwell Frost at the federal level. And they obviously are the two most popular, if you will, representatives in that region. And they have a plethora of volunteers, which I am sure is definitely playing a role. Can you talk more about the grassroots element of this campaign and how that will ultimately push you over the finish line?
Right. So I would also add State Senator Victor Torres, who represents most of Osceola County. So District 35 has Orange and Osceola, so we have to talk both counties. Both of them are structured slightly different, which makes it interesting when you go to one side or the other. So, for example, early voting ends a day earlier in Osceola, but their hours are a little longer during the week. So it's kind of crazy. We've had so many volunteers, so many different groups that have stepped up to help. For example, you were just talking about women's reproductive freedom. I did get an endorsement from Planned Parenthood PAC. That came in the last couple of weeks. So they obviously recognize the importance that this election will play for the statewide initiative in November. We win this, we are showing that the voters understand the issues really well, and that gives us a huge jump going into next fall. We've had just folks from all over. We had 80 people, and that's the correct number, 80 people.
Wow.
I had Congressman Frost and a special guest from South Florida, David Hogue from and he came up and spoke at our canvas, and obviously that drew a lot of people in, and we probably knocked on 1,500 doors that day with David, which was fantastic.
Excellent.
That's amazing. And you know what? So what's cool about it when you're dealing with a state house race is the district size is so much more manageable in terms of really being able to have on-ground connection. Right. And that is such a benefit when 80 volunteers for a state house seat is enough to easily canvass the whole district. Like that's like the way you got to do it.
It was fantastic. Now I've made it a personal a goal of mine to make sure that I go into every single precinct. I have actually knocked on 3,500, 4,000 doors myself personally across the district. The district is geographically, it's huge. It's 120 miles from one end to the other. Part of it is in Orlando, the Orlando metro area, so it's very suburban, very dense. But as you go south into Osceola County, which, by the way, is one of the largest cattle producing counties in the whole country, south of a certain highway that your viewers may not know, 192, it's all cattle ranches. So very few people live south of that area. So it gets real rural. So we're reaching out to those folks via phone because it's almost impossible to go knock on their doors. But we are knocking on doors every single day. And we've been doing so since, well, before the primary when I started running. And then since after I won the primary, we just doubled our efforts, and we're 100% knocking on doors.
What I garnered from that is there's not a lot of people living south of 192, and it's hard to get to people's houses. And I'm sitting there and thinking, you could not be advertising for me to come move there any better. You're like, there's so few people there, we can't really get to them. I'm like, oh, that's where I want to go.
Yeah, we have that here in Broward County in two towns: Southwest Ranches, which is out of basically everybody's price range, and West Davie, and that's about it. And so we are very developed down here in South Florida, but there are, I think a lot of people don't recognize when people think of, like cattle ranching and things like that, they think more of, Texas, the Southwest regions, Colorado, Utah.
I didn't realize there was so much cattle. I mean, I always knew we were horse country. We're always horse country, but I didn't realize that.
Agriculture in Central Florida is about as big as any place in the whole country. It's
agribusiness in Osceola is huge. It's one of the, if it wasn't for Disney, that would be the central industry for Osceola County right now. Obviously, we're trying to diversify it. We want to bring some high-tech things in, which is important. The cattle ranching is actually slowing down a little bit, as some of the multi-generation families have been selling off their ranching acreage, and they've turned into housing developments. Of course. So we're growing like crazy. So maybe at the next census, we'll see the district will actually split in half, and we'll see that all of Osceola County will be covered by basically a state rep that's only in Osceola, as opposed to the split between Orange and Osceola.
Yeah, it sounds pretty diverse. I mean, we used to cover two counties, but it was basically the same thing. But to have because those demographics have different needs.
They do.
I mean, they're just different.
Yeah. And you got to keep a foot in both counties, right? You cannot favor one over the other. About 80% of the folks live in Orange County, and 20% of them live in Osceola, and out of that 20%, most of them live north of that 192 that you mentioned. So, and I will say, you just turn your head, and another 400 or 500 houses go up. It's just incredible what they're doing.
Yeah,
so it's amazing. I would expect that we'll see another Orlando at some point, right? South in Osceola County. It's getting that big.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point, Tom. And obviously, we have a lot of issues here in the state. Of course, the cost of living is very high. Housing is extremely expensive, and insurance is even worse. One of the primary issues that you would be focused on, obviously, that is a huge one. But from your perspective, obviously being in Central Florida, what are the primary issues of this moment that you would be focusing on in Tallahassee? And quite frankly, if you are able to get to Tallahassee starting next week, what are the issues that you think you could bridge the divide with the GOP on, since they are in the majority control?
Sure. We'll still be in the super minority, as they call it, even when I'm elected. The two issues that we're running on, and the ones that I hear at the door when I personally knock on the door, are property insurance. That's a huge one, and reproductive freedom. And I tell folks, when you're looking at the old guy here, right? So when I knock on the door, if a woman answers, I don't bring up reproductive freedom. I let her bring that up. I want to make sure that we lead with something that I'm comfortable with, and that's with property insurance. And that has just resonated. Folks' property insurance. My next door neighbor went from $1,700 to $4,000.
Oh yeah,
in 1 year. And so we've got to figure out a way to get control over that. And we had a listening session yesterday with former representative and former consumer advocate for insurance, Sean Shaw, was up, and we were talking about some of the things that we think we could do to basically cap these rate increases. And I think that is a bipartisan issue.
Definitely.
Even though you saw the speaker kind of slow things down a little bit up there on property insurance reform, and I don't know that they're going to look at anything this year. I know there's been a couple bills proposed, but whether they get through or not, I'm doubtful. But that is a bipartisan thing, and that is one that I think that we could work together on, and make sure that the voters, the people who are paying these high rates, they're Republicans and Democrats, right? They're both. So they're just Floridians, and so we want to be able to provide them with some relief and get a handle on the highest rates in the country right now. We don't need to be the highest. We should be fleet average. We've got hurricanes in multiple states, and we're still paying the highest rate. So it's a little crazy.
I would definitely agree. I'm in commercial real estate, but one of the reasons I do not believe that anything is really changing in the manner that it really needs to, I know that the excuse that they're giving is Surfside. As far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest problems, and again, this gets to state economics, not federal economics, but at the state level, at the micro level, the GOP is simply not going to raise taxes on the rich to mitigate the costs of what it is in
which
these
is what
particular
needs to
areas.
happen.
You know, one of the biggest problems we do have in this country is that public education is tied to property taxes. The fact that that is a defining characteristic of what so many communities end up looking like. For example, you know, when you're talking about the affluent suburbs of Orlando versus the inner city of Orlando, that would be a prime example of where that doesn't make sense. I mean, we can't necessarily just restructure the whole economic system, but I think we can all agree that in this particular state, and now that we are the third most populous state and growing, that because there is no attempt to get the super rich to pay their fair share, and there are a hell of a lot of them that come to this state for that purpose, that is something that has to be, we cannot be afraid to talk about that issue, especially in Tallahassee.
Well, it is interesting that my opponent has got some ads out saying how I'm going to be the one to raise property rates for everybody, and that one of my pockets is lined with trial lawyers, and then the other is lined with insurance companies. If you think about that, they're adversaries in this, right? So it's kind of crazy how I'm getting tarred and feathered with both sides of this. I will say that one of the things that they brought up that I did not promote was helping out millionaire homes with Citizens property insurance, right? You know, if you have a very expensive home and you have the wealth, then you should be paying, you know, market rates for your property insurance. Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.